Hello! This semester, our class set out to investigate Boise's food systems and help the city understand the barriers that keep these systems from working as well as they could. Our goal was to figure out why it has become harder for farmers to operate, harder for people to access fresh food, as well as ways to overcome these barriers. To get a better picture, we went out into the community instead of only reading about it. We visited farms, community gardens, food organizations, and city operations, and we talked with the people who grow food, teach about it, deliver it, and keep local programs running. What we saw is that every part of the food system affects the next. Land use, labor, water, zoning, and even insurance all shape what ends up on people's tables. These visits and conversations showed us what is working, what is struggling, and where support is needed if Boise wants a food system that stays strong and affordable in the future. Boise is one of the fastest developing cities in the country, and the land that disappears first is almost always farmland. Fields turn into subdivisions and warehouses, and once that land is developed, it is basically gone for good. We cannot get it back, and that affects how much fresh food can be grown here. We learned from global gardens that even when farmers want to grow food, finding land they can farm long term is extremely difficult. Most small growers lease their land, and rising land values mean they can lose their space at any time. Idaho has already lost a huge amount of farmland, and the most productive soils are being developed the fastest. That means the land best suited for growing food is disappearing first. All of this makes it harder for CSAs, small farms, and community programs to stay rooted in Boise, and it leads directly into another major issue we saw this semester, which is how zoning and policy decide whether farming in the city is even possible. Many conversations we had touched on this, however, the clearest example was the Sycamore Overlay District. During Boise's 2023 zoning rewrite, the first draft removed the overlay, which would have likely taken away the neighborhood's ability to farm and keep livestock. The only reason farmers like Wendy from Rewild Farm can still operate is because the community fought hard to keep those protections. We also learned about conservation easements and land deed restrictions. Idaho allows these on paper, but they offer almost no financial benefit other than what the USDA provides. Putting land into an easement lowers its value, and Idaho does not provide meaningful tax breaks or compensation. So when developers offer huge payouts, farmers cannot realistically turn that down. The policy exists, but it doesn't have much economic support behind it. Because the financial tools to protect farmland are weak, urban farmers depend heavily on zoning. Without these protections, they face noise complaints, HOA rules, livestock limits, and barriers that make it hard to expand or even stay open. For many growers, zoning is the only thing keeping their farm from disappearing. Water was another major barrier. Boise is getting hotter and drier, and water deliveries are unpredictable. At the 20-mile South Farm, they made it clear that there is no incentive for farmers to conserve water. Idaho uses a use it or lose it system. If you save water, you risk losing your water rights later, so farmers often overuse water just to keep the rights they already have. Water rights also follow a hierarchy. Older rights get priority during shortages. If you have newer rights or no rights at all, you may not be able to get water when you need it. And if you do not have water rights or a well, farming can become extremely difficult and overly expensive. Upgrading irrigation systems could help, but most small operations cannot afford the cost. Once we talked to farmers about why they're staying smaller, another barrier kept coming up: insurance and liability. For a lot of small growers, insurance makes expanding impossible. Even bringing on volunteers can trigger new requirements. The Boise Urban Garden School shared that certain programs or scaling up production would force them into new insurance categories, which is a part of why some operations stay intentionally small. And that's coming from a city-supported program with far more stability than most. For independent farmers, the barrier is even higher. Hiring help often means taking on workers' comp, liability coverage, vendor insurance, and farm insurance all at once. The cost can easily outweigh the income for what a small farm brings in, so instead of growing, many farms cap their size simply because the risk is too high. And all of this creates a ceiling on growth long before planting or harvesting even begins. Another huge barrier was labor. It came up everywhere we went. Farms, community gardens, and nonprofits are all short on people and they're running on burnout. Bugs heavily relies on volunteers because one person can't realistically run a teaching farm alone. The Idaho Food Bank also depends on volunteers, with hours that equal to more than 30 full-time jobs a year. For small farmers, the pressure is even more intense. At Rewild, Wendy works more than 12-hour days on her own with some family support because hiring help just simply isn't realistic. Insurance and liability make it too expensive, and the farm doesn't make enough to support a second wage. Many global garden farmers are in the same situation, growing food while also holding a full-time job to support their families. These local issues match national patterns as well. Agriculture across the country is short on workers, and foreign seasonal labor programs are complicated and expensive. Nonprofits such as the City of Good also pointed out that livable wages still aren't standard in the food world, even though many workers experience food insecurity themselves. So, across the board, labor shortages slow everything down. Farmers grow less, nonprofits serve fewer people, community gardens burn out, and it's one of the biggest things holding our food systems back. And it leads straight into our next barrier, which is farmer market access. Don't get me wrong, Boise has farmers markets, but most of them happen at the same time, which is early on weekend mornings, typically Saturday. That makes it hard for a lot of people to get there, including farmers. And I think Wendy says it best.
Most CSA farmers that you'll talk to, or most market farmers that are trying to do this at such a small scale, they balance CSAs with like farm stand. I refuse to give up my Saturday mornings. I'm not going to the farmers market, period. Like, if I could find one Wednesday night, maybe. Like, I might do like evening during the week, but it's hard enough. I'm not giving up the one morning that I can sleep past 5 a.m.
And our guest speakers echoed this. Expanding market times and locations, especially evening or neighborhood-specific markets, would make fresh food more accessible for everyone and help farmers actually sell what they grow. Models like the mobile market, through a partnership with City of Good and the Boise Farmers Market, show that creative approaches like this really do work. To strengthen Boise's food systems, here are a few ways that we could possibly overcome the barriers. The first would be to support zoning that protects urban agriculture. Boise needs zoning that keeps urban farms viable. Keeping protections like the sycamore overlay and expanding upon them, as well as limiting restrictive HOAs, would give growers the stability they need to keep producing food in the city. The next would be to modernize Idaho's water policies. Farmers shouldn't lose water rights for conserving. Incentivizing for drip irrigation, soil health, and rainwater capture would help growers save water while still having reliable access to when they need it. Another would be to strengthen the food system workforce. Our food systems run on people, and right now we don't have enough. Livable wages, better volunteer coordination, and clearer pathways for seasonal and migrant workers would ease the pressure across the entire system. Next would be to expand farmer market access. Evening and weekday markets, more locations, more mobile or pay what you can models would make food easier for both farmers and consumers to access. And lastly would be to lower insurance barriers for small growers. Small farms shouldn't be blocked from growing because of insurance. Supporting liability and exploring cooperative coverage models would make expansion and hiring more realistic. All of these actions support each other. Protecting land, water, and workers' rights strengthen every part of the food system. Boise already has a lot going for it. We have committed farmers, strong nonprofits, and a community that genuinely cares about local food. But the system around them needs attention. If we want Boise to keep its agriculture identity and make local food accessible, we have to invest in the people and places that keep it running. Protecting farmland, supporting growers, improving water access, and building a fair labor systems are not just improvements. They are what keep this food system alive. Boise is growing quickly, and we have a choice. We can grow in a way that supports local food, or we can let these barriers push it out. A healthy food system does not stay strong on its own. It stays strong because the community chooses to care for it.